Introduction. Friends, if you're excited to watch the much-anticipated and brilliantly crafted film The Thursday Murder Club 2025 in English, then make sure you stick around and enjoy this video till the end. And if you're visiting our channel for the very first time, don't forget to hit that subscribe button because we bring you all the updates, reviews, and hidden gems of the entertainment world, especially the ones you don't want to miss. Today's video is going to be a real treat for mystery lovers because we are diving deep into everything you need to know about The Thursday Murder Club, a film that brings together comedy, crime-solving, clever characters, and a whole lot of unexpected twists, all wrapped up in a charming British setting. In this video, we'll take you through what exactly this movie is, why it's gaining so much attention, and what makes it one of the most talked-about releases of 2025. You'll get to know when and where you can watch this film, whether it's releasing in theaters near you, dropping on a popular OTT platform, or being broadcast on a satellite channel. We'll break down all the viewing options so you can enjoy it in the best possible way, whether you're planning a movie night at home or heading out to the cinema with friends. And that's not all. We'll be diving into the technical aspects of the film, who directed it, who handled the cinematography, the editing style, and how the tone of the film has been built with lighting, production design, and of course, the musical score. We'll look into the film's journey from its early pre-production days, how the script was adapted, when and where filming took place, and what went into the post-production process. Was it a smooth journey, or were there some behind-the-scenes surprises? We'll cover all of that too. Of course, we'll also talk about the financial side. How big was the budget? Was it spent wisely? And most importantly, did the movie manage to strike gold at the box office? Was it a blockbuster or a sleeper hit? Did audiences flock to see it? We'll explore what the early box office reports are saying and how critics and viewers have responded so far. Then we move on to the heart of the film, the story. I'll be giving you a quick, spoiler-free review of the storyline, introducing you to the main plot without giving away any of the big reveals. What is the Thursday Murder Club all about? Who are the key characters? What kind of murder mystery are we dealing with here? And why are four quirky retirees at the center of it all? If you're curious to know what kind of ride this story will take you on, you'll want to stay tuned for this part. We'll also explore the film's cast and performances. Who played which character? How well they fit their roles, and which performances stood out. From veteran stars to fresh faces, this film has an ensemble cast worth talking about. How did they bring their characters to life, and what kind of chemistry do they share on screen? You'll get all the details. And to make it even more exciting, we'll discuss some lesser-known facts, trivia, and behind-the-scenes moments that fans of the movie and the original book will definitely enjoy. Whether you're a die-hard fan of Richard Osman's best-selling novel, or just discovering this world for the first time, this video will give you everything you need to fully appreciate the movie. So, grab your popcorn, settle in, and make sure you stay with us till the very end, because there's a lot to uncover. Let's get started. The story of the Thursday Murder Club kicks off in a picturesque yet deceptively quiet retirement village called Cooper's Chase. At first glance, it seems like the kind of place where the biggest scandal might be an overwatered petunia or a missing crossword puzzle. But beneath the surface, things are far more intriguing. Our tale begins with four unlikely sleuths, Elizabeth, Joyce, Ibrahim, and Ron, retired, witty, and wonderfully nosy individuals who meet every Thursday to solve cold cases that the police have left behind. Their meetings are a blend of biscuits, banter, and crime scene photos, and it's all just a thrilling hobby until a real murder lands right on their doorstep. That's when the story kicks into gear. A developer connected to the retirement community is found dead under mysterious circumstances, and suddenly the Thursday Murder Club has a live case on their hands. Instead of staying in their cozy armchairs, they leap into action. But don't expect them to break into a sprint. This is sleuthing with spectacles and sensible shoes. The narrative now begins to weave its charm, balancing clever mystery with sharp comedy and a bit of emotional depth that sneaks in when you least expect it. What's fun is that the story doesn't rush. It takes its time exploring each character's perspective. Joyce, who's a former nurse and keeps a diary, offers a wonderfully chatty narration that gives us inside access to the group's personal thoughts. Her perspective adds warmth and humor, while Elizabeth, mysterious and with an MI5-ish past, brings a sharper, calculating edge. The narrative switches tones and voices subtly but effectively, giving us a rounded view of events and motives, often showing us just enough to keep the gears in our heads turning, but never the full picture. The pacing plays with the idea of time in a gentle but engaging way. It's mostly linear, but the way each character recalls past experiences adds a textured, layered feel to the narrative. The plot thickens when a second murder occurs, complicating everything. Now, the group isn't just following one lead. They're neck-deep in red herrings, secrets, and suspects who are all a bit too cooperative or far too defensive. And because they're not official investigators, their methods are wildly unconventional. Charming interviews disguised as friendly chats, sneaky access to records, even the occasional bending of retirement home rules. A key turning point hits when the team uncovers a hidden connection between the victims and a decades-old case that no one wants to talk about. That's when the emotional weight of the story really starts to build. It's no longer just a murder mystery. It becomes a tale about guilt, justice, and the passage of time. The retirees each confront their own regrets and unresolved issues as the case digs deeper into the past. There are moments of surprising tension, especially as the killer begins to realize that these old-timers might be getting a bit too close to the truth. But it's never played too heavy. The tone swings back and forth with ease, from poignant to playful, suspenseful to heartwarming. The final act unravels the mystery with a clever twist that's been hiding in plain sight, and while you may have guessed parts of it, the emotional payoff feels completely earned. Through it all, the story never loses its charm. It's not just about solving a crime. It's about friendship, purpose, and how, even in the later chapters of life, there's plenty of adventure to be had. The narrative works its magic by mixing sharp wit with genuine emotion and anchoring the mystery in deeply human experiences. It keeps you guessing, laughing, and maybe even tearing up just a little, all the way to the very end. The heart of the Thursday Murder Club doesn't beat through gunshots or chase scenes. It pulses through its characters, each one full of quirks, secrets, and unexpected depth. These aren't your usual crime solvers. They're retirees with complicated pasts, cheeky personalities, and a hunger for mischief that retirement homes usually don't advertise. At the center of it all is Elizabeth, who might just be the most mysterious member of the group. She has a shadowy background, possibly MI5, possibly something even stranger, and brings a calm, commanding energy to every situation. She's not just clever. She's calculating, always 3 steps ahead, and always ready to outwit everyone in the room, including the audience. Yet beneath her cool, controlled surface, you can sense a loneliness, a restlessness, and even some grief that she doesn't wear on her sleeve. Then there's Joyce, a former nurse who is wonderfully chatty and endearingly nosy. Her diary entries act as a kind of window into the soul of the group, offering both humor and subtle emotional insight. She begins as a kind of outsider, just happy to be included, but slowly grows into one of the core decision-makers. Her character arc is delightful, not because she suddenly becomes a hardened detective, but because she learns to trust her instincts and discovers how valuable her voice really is. Ibrahim is the methodical one, a retired psychiatrist who brings logic, precision, and a calm perspective to the team. He approaches each problem like a chess match, quietly assessing everyone, including his friends. He starts off emotionally guarded, often hiding behind structure and routine, but the story gently pushes him out of his comfort zone. A personal scare shakes him and forces him to reckon with his vulnerabilities. It's a beautifully quiet transformation that makes his character feel more real with every scene. Ron, the ex-union leader, is all bluster and attitude at first glance. He comes across as the type who'd rather be fighting the system than solving mysteries. But as the case develops, we see that his fiery spirit masks a surprisingly soft heart. His relationship with his son, rocky, strained, and yet filled with unspoken love, adds a rich emotional layer. Watching Ron soften, reconnect, and realize that he's still capable of being a hero in someone else's story is one of the most rewarding arcs in the film. And what truly makes this ensemble shine isn't just who they are individually, but how they interact. They bicker like old friends, tease like teenagers, and support each other like family. Their motivations aren't just about catching a killer. They're searching for purpose, for connection, for a way to stay relevant in a world that often forgets the elderly. As the mystery deepens, so do their bonds. Secrets are shared. Past mistakes are confessed. And trust is tested in ways that reveal just how layered and human each character really is. Even the supporting cast, the detectives working the case, the suspects hiding truths, the staff and residents of Cooper's Chase, are more than just background noise. They bounce off the core group in meaningful ways. Some are changed by the Thursday Murder Club's relentless optimism and insight. Others are challenged, confronted, and even inspired. What's brilliant is how none of the character development feels forced. These transformations happen organically, nudged along by a good mystery, a few near misses, and a lot of heart. The characters don't just help solve a murder. They help each other face life again, with all its messiness, unpredictability, and bittersweet beauty. They remind us that no matter how old you are, your story isn't finished yet, and that sometimes the biggest plot twist is discovering your own worth. The performances in the Thursday Murder Club are nothing short of a masterclass in character work. This is a film where actors don't just play roles. They wear them like well-worn coats, full of warmth, charm, and just the right amount of creases. From the moment the central foursome steps onto the screen, it's clear that this cast isn't just here to entertain. They're here to make you believe that retirement might just be the perfect time to become a detective. Let's start with the powerhouse presence of the actress playing Elizabeth. She's got that commanding stillness that draws you in without a single raised voice. Her portrayal walks the fine line between gentle wisdom and icy strategy. You can see the gears turning behind her eyes in every scene, and when she speaks, everyone listens. Even the camera seems to lean in a little. Her delivery is sharp, deliberate, and laced with a kind of quiet tension that makes you wonder what secrets she's not telling us. And yet, in the more vulnerable moments, like when memories of her past life sneak in, or when she's quietly watching over her friends, she brings this soft, almost invisible ache that hits you right in the heart. Then there's Joyce, played to perfection by an actress who understands that sometimes the most powerful performance is the one that makes you smile unexpectedly. She is bubbly without being exaggerated, curious without being caricatured. Through her diary-style narration and wide-eyed enthusiasm, she becomes the emotional glue of the group. Her comedic timing is impeccable, and she somehow makes even the smallest line feel like a meaningful beat in the story. But what really stands out is the way she plays growth. You can literally feel her gaining confidence scene by scene. Watching her go from newbie to the club to accidental genius is one of the most satisfying things in the film. Ibrahim is brought to life with incredible restraint by an actor who understands the power of silence. His manner is clinical and deliberate, his every gesture neat and measured. It's a performance that builds slowly, like a symphony warming up, and then quietly crescendos when he's forced to confront his own fears and uncertainties. The vulnerability he shows later in the film isn't loud or dramatic. It's subtle, like a thread pulling loose in an otherwise perfect weave. And that makes it feel so much more real. You get the sense that he's not just playing a man with structure. He is that structure, until life pushes him to unravel just enough. Ron, the rough-around-the-edges ex-Union firebrand, is a burst of energy and grit. The actor portraying him gives the role teeth, sharp when they need to be, but capable of biting into tenderness just as easily. He's got that perfect growl, the kind that masks a soft spot the size of a football field. His scenes with his son are raw and honest, never overplayed, and that gives his journey real emotional heft. When Ron finally drops the tough guy act, even for a moment, it's like watching a wall crumble, and you realize just how much emotion has been bricked up inside him. But the real magic happens when all four of them share the screen. Their chemistry is effortless, their rhythms so natural that you'd swear they've been solving crimes and sharing biscuits for years. Their back-and-forth banter crackles, their emotional support feels authentic, and their disagreements land like little thunderclaps, brief but meaningful. This isn't just an ensemble that works together, it's one that elevates every scene they're in. The supporting cast also steps up. The detectives, witty, skeptical, sometimes baffled, play the perfect counterweight to our amateur sleuths. Whether they're rolling their eyes or secretly admiring the group's persistence, they add texture to the story and keep the stakes grounded. Suspects and side characters, from shady developers to surprisingly emotional witnesses, all bring something to the table. Even characters with only a handful of scenes manage to leave a lasting impression, thanks to performances that treat every moment like it matters. There's a richness to the acting across the board, a sense that everyone involved knows they're part of something special. The performances don't just serve the mystery, they bring out the soul of the story. And while the whodunit keeps you hooked, it's the performances that make you stay, that make you feel, and that might even make you wish you could join the Thursday Murder Club yourself. The direction in the Thursday Murder Club is like a well-brewed cup of tea, comforting, familiar, but with just enough unexpected flavor to keep you sipping. The director approaches this story not just as a murder mystery, but as a celebration of age, wisdom, friendship, and the messy charm of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. From the very first scene, the tone is perfectly set, a balance between cozy and curious. You can almost smell the biscuits and hear the quiet hum of gossip echoing through the retirement home. But don't let that soft beginning fool you. The director threads the entire film with a playful sharpness, inviting you into a world where nothing is ever as quiet as it seems. Pacing is a delicate dance here, and the director absolutely nails it. This isn't a story that charges forward. It strolls, meanders, pauses for a thoughtful look, and then surprises you with a sudden sprint. But that's exactly what works. The pacing mirrors the characters themselves, measured, careful, but never boring. The film doesn't rush its reveals. It lets scenes breathe, allowing the audience to enjoy the banter, soak in the details, and get wrapped up in the atmosphere. But when a clue drops or a twist hits, the tempo shifts just enough to make your heart skip. Shot composition is another clever tool in the director's kit. There's a subtle elegance in how scenes are framed. Cozy interiors with warm lighting wrap the audience in a sense of safety until a carefully placed shadow or off-center shot reminds you that all is not as it seems. The director often uses group framing to highlight the chemistry among the club members. Their table becomes a stage where every glance, smirk, or sip of tea feels loaded with unspoken meaning. When the story shifts to moments of suspense or confrontation, the camera gets tighter, the movement slows, and suddenly you're holding your breath without realizing it. The director also plays with visual contrasts in a way that keeps the mood dynamic. The calm, green lawns of Cooper's Chase are often juxtaposed with flashbacks or darker scenes that hint at past regrets or hidden dangers. This layering of tone, gentle comedy mixed with genuine tension, comes from a very intentional visual rhythm. There's a touch of Wes Anderson's symmetry in the staging at times, but it's never quirky for quirk's sake. Every stylistic choice serves a narrative purpose, whether it's making a scene feel oddly suspicious or letting a moment of emotional truth sink in. What's particularly clever is how the director leans into the personalities of the characters to shape the mood of each scene. When Joyce is narrating, the tone lifts a little brighter, a little more open, almost like we're watching a memory. When Elizabeth takes control, the film shifts to something more calculated, with tighter angles and deliberate pauses. The direction lets you feel whose lens you're looking through without announcing it. That's a subtle but powerful storytelling trick that adds depth without slowing the pace. Even the use of silence is smart. In a film filled with dialogue and clues, the director knows exactly when to step back and let a quiet moment do the heavy lifting. A glance held a second too long. A smile that fades when no one's looking. These are the choices that bring weight to the mystery and soul to the characters. And let's talk about the transitions, smooth, seamless, and often laced with humor. The director doesn't rely on flashy edits or dramatic music stings to keep you interested. Instead, transitions are marked by character moments, a quip, a meaningful look, a diary entry that bridges one scene to the next. That creates a narrative flow that feels more like a conversation than a series of plot points. But perhaps the most impressive feat is how the director makes a film about retirees feel fresh, urgent, and alive. There's a deep respect here for the character's age, not as a limitation, but as a source of power. And that tone is set from the director's chair. The film doesn't mock its characters for being older. It celebrates them for still being curious, still being brave, still being capable of change. And by the end, you don't just see a mystery solved. You see lives rediscovered. That's the kind of directorial vision that lingers. Not because it shouts, but because it listens. Because it knows that sometimes the biggest thrill isn't in the chase. It's in the company you keep while chasing. The cinematography in the Thursday Murder Club is like a character all its own, quiet, observant, sometimes playful, and often just a little nosy, much like the central quartet at the heart of the film. The camera doesn't just capture scenes, it listens, peers, peeks around corners, and occasionally lingers just a moment too long, as if it's in on the investigation with us. From the very first shot, there's an intentional warmth to the visuals. The retirement village of Cooper's Chase is presented with soft, natural lighting and earthy tones that give it the look of an ideal little world, safe, sleepy, almost suspiciously serene. It's the kind of place you might want to move into yourself, until the camera tilts ever so slightly and you catch a shadow moving where it shouldn't. One of the first things you'll notice is how framing is used to reflect the characters' roles in the story. When we're with the Thursday Murder Club during their secretive meetings, the shots are wide and inclusive, showing them seated around a table like knights of a round table, equal, united, all in it together. But when tension creeps in, the cinematography becomes tighter and more selective. Close-ups are used not just for dramatic effect, but to subtly expose doubt, suspicion, or internal conflict. A raised eyebrow from Elizabeth. A flicker of hesitation in Joyce's smile. A quiet moment of fear on Ibrahim's face. These aren't big, dramatic shifts, they're intimate, almost whispered. But they land with impact because the camera knows exactly when to move in and when to stay back. Lighting also plays a clever role in shifting the tone. Daylight scenes in Cooper's Chase are bathed in soft, golden hues, nothing harsh, everything mellow. But when the story dips into the darker corners of the mystery, the light dims just enough to unsettle you. Interior shots become more shadowed, even claustrophobic, especially when secrets are being uncovered. A key scene in a basement or a hidden office, for example, is suddenly lit with a cold wash of light that feels sterile and unfriendly. It tells you visually, this is no longer tea and cake territory. Something's not right here. There's also some beautiful contrast work going on, like a cozy fireside chat cutting directly to a flashback washed in gray, cool blues, signaling emotional detachment or a memory soaked in regret. One visually striking moment comes when the group attends a funeral and the camera pulls back in a sweeping crane shot, showing them as small figures under a giant, cloud-heavy sky. It's poetic, almost painterly, reminding us how tiny their lives are in the grand scheme, and yet how big their choices feel in the moment. Another standout sequence happens during a crucial reveal, where the camera moves in a slow, steady dolly shot toward the suspect's face, syncing with the rising music and the growing tension until the moment lands like a quiet bomb. And when the group is out snooping because they do love their fieldwork, the cinematography gets playful. Over-the-shoulder shots give a sense of eavesdropping. Long lenses let us spy from a distance, like we're peeking through the hedges. These visual choices aren't just stylish. They make us feel like part of the team, complicit in their little missions. At times, the camera will track behind a character moving down a hallway or walking through a crowd, creating the sensation that someone might be following or that the past is catching up to them. It's subtle, but it works. Even the mundane is made meaningful. A kettle boiling, a drawer being opened, a walk through the village garden. Everything is shot with care, often with just a little movement or shift in focus to suggest that there's something more to notice. You'll find yourself looking twice, not because the film shouts clues at you, but because the cinematography whispers them. What makes it all so engaging is that the visuals never distract. They enhance. They add mood, context, and character. Whether it's a beautifully lit sunset walk, a dimly lit confrontation, or a simple glance caught from across the room, the cinematography keeps you emotionally tethered to the story. It doesn't just show you what's happening, it makes you feel it in the way light falls, how shadows stretch, and where the camera chooses to linger. This is cinematography that knows exactly where to look and when to look away. The editing in the Thursday Murder Club has the energy of a well-timed punchline mixed with the patience of a seasoned detective. It knows when to wait, when to strike, and when to let a moment simmer just long enough to make it count. The film flows like a good conversation with an old friend, sometimes brisk, sometimes reflective, but always engaging. Transitions between scenes are handled with a kind of invisible elegance. You don't notice the cuts because they feel natural, even when they're shifting between tones, from a lighthearted chat over tea to a quiet moment of introspection, or a sudden reveal that drops like a stone into still water. The editors know the rhythm of the story's heartbeat and cut to it with confidence. From the very beginning, the film establishes a comfortable pace. It doesn't rush to get to the murder. It lets you settle into the world of Cooper's chase first, giving you time to know the characters, their routines, their quirks, and the rhythms of their everyday lives. The first act moves with a gentle grace, not because it's slow, but because it's deliberate. The editing here mirrors the curiosity of the Thursday Murder Club themselves. It takes in the scenery, listens carefully, and lingers on little things that might seem unimportant at first, but later turn out to be exactly where the secrets were hiding. Once the mystery kicks in, the editing starts to tighten. Scenes become snappier, information is layered more quickly, and cuts start to carry more urgency. But what's impressive is that the film never sacrifices clarity for speed. Even as the stakes rise and the clues begin to pile up, the editors make sure we're never lost. Each thread is given space to develop, each suspect scene given its own rhythm, whether it's awkwardly funny, deeply suspicious, or surprisingly emotional. There's a lot going on, multiple timelines, character backstories, hidden motives, but it all clicks into place because the pacing knows exactly how long to hold a beat before moving on. There are brilliant moments where the editing becomes a storytelling device in itself. Take the use of intercutting between the group's investigation and the official police work. Those scenes are often edited in parallel, showing how the amateurs sometimes get closer to the truth than the professionals, and doing it with cheeky timing that makes you grin. The way the scenes are cut together draws attention to the contrast without spelling it out. It lets the audience feel smart for noticing. And when the film wants to slow things down, it does so with real intent. There are moments, especially ones involving personal confessions or flashbacks, that breathe differently. The editors give these scenes more space, fewer cuts, longer takes, and quieter transitions. You feel the weight of memory, the ache of loss, the stillness that follows a truth finally spoken. These slower moments don't drag, they land. They give the audience time to absorb, to reflect, and to feel. Montage sequences are used sparingly, but when they appear, they're a delight. Whether it's the group compiling clues, hilariously attempting covert surveillance, or preparing for one of their many unofficial interrogations, the editing captures their camaraderie and determination without ever overdoing it. The music syncs perfectly, the cuts are rhythmic, and there's a playfulness to the way the scenes build. It keeps the energy alive and pulls you right into their little world of homemade investigations. There's also a clever use of transitions that tie into character perspectives. For instance, when Joyce is narrating via her diary, the edits often reflect her inner rhythm, more fluid, meandering, filled with curiosity. When the focus shifts to Elizabeth, the cuts are sharper, more calculated, often with a hint of tension. These shifts in editing style keep the story from feeling monotonous. It's like switching lenses without losing focus. In the third act, where everything begins to unravel and the full truth starts to surface, the editing quickens. Cuts become more frequent, information flows faster, and scenes begin to stack closely against each other. But instead of feeling like a sprint, it feels like a clock ticking down, controlled chaos with a payoff in sight. The editor knows just how long to withhold the final piece of the puzzle before dropping it with maximum impact. And when the big reveal comes, the edit lets it sit. There's no rush to move on. The silence after a revelation is just as important as the reveal itself, and this film knows how to use that silence. Even the final scenes, which could have easily gone on too long, are trimmed just right. The resolution is given its due without overstaying its welcome. The pacing lets us say goodbye to the characters not in a hurry, but with a sense of warmth and closure. From start to finish, the editing works like a careful storyteller, never too fast, never too slow, always in service of the characters, the emotion, and the mystery. It's one of those rare cases where you almost forget someone edited the film at all because the rhythm feels so natural. That's how you know it's working. The soundtrack of the Thursday Murder Club is like an invisible character in the room, subtle, clever, and always one step ahead. It doesn't blast its presence. It tiptoes through scenes, peeking around corners and smiling to itself when the audience gets closer to the truth. From the very first scene, the score sets the tone with a quirky yet refined charm. There's a hint of mischief in the melodies, the kind that lets you know this isn't your typical crime thriller. It's more Agatha Christie by way of a countryside jazz club, with a dash of emotional warmth tucked beneath every note. The music knows this story is part murder mystery, part celebration of unlikely friendships, and part reflection on life's later chapters, and it wears all those hats with style. The opening sequence introduces a main motif that cleverly recurs throughout the film. It's a soft piano and string blend, light on its feet, a little playful, a little melancholic. It plays when the Thursday Murder Club meets for the first time and returns, sometimes slightly altered, during key character moments. The score doesn't just repeat itself, it evolves, much like the characters. For instance, when Joyce narrates from her diary, the music underneath feels like a warm cup of tea, gentle, melodic, sprinkled with little woodwind flourishes that echo her curiosity. But when Elizabeth takes charge, the same motif might appear with a more suspenseful edge, lower strings, slower tempo, maybe a subtle shift in harmony to suggest something more calculated is at work. What's delightful is how the music never tries to overtake the story. In scenes of investigation, the soundtrack doesn't scream clues are coming. Instead, it tiptoes with the characters. Plucked strings here, a flicker of oboe there, suggesting that something is worth noticing if you're paying attention. During moments of discovery, the music subtly swells, not to create drama, but to reward curiosity. It lets you feel clever, like you've earned the reveal right alongside the club. Silence, too, is used with expert restraint. Some of the most emotionally resonant scenes drop the music entirely, letting the dialogue or the pause between words do the heavy lifting. In one particular scene where a character confesses something deeply personal, there's no score at all, just the ambient sounds of a quiet room and the weight of what's being said. And that silence hits harder than any dramatic crescendo could. It's a reminder that music, when used wisely, knows when to stay silent. But when the score does rise, it knows how to move you. A scene where Ron reconnects with his estranged son is underscored by a gentle, almost nostalgic piece that swells just enough to mirror the unspoken feelings in the air. It doesn't push you to feel, it simply unlocks what's already there. That's true of many of the emotional beats. The soundtrack understands that these characters have lived long, complicated lives, and the music reflects that with grace and emotional intelligence. There are no big, sweeping themes demanding your attention, just carefully placed notes that seem to know exactly what the moment needs. Then there are the standout compositions, the little gems that catch your ear. One involves a soft waltz-like tune that plays during a montage of the group doing their unofficial sleuthing, flipping through documents, whispering in corridors, tailing suspects with hilariously casual disguises. It brings the whole sequence to life, adding charm and rhythm without turning it into a cartoon. Another memorable cue plays during a funeral scene, where the score blends a single cello line with ambient background sound to create a hauntingly beautiful sense of closure. It's not flashy, but it stays with you long after the scene ends. Even the end credits get a touch of flair. Instead of going for something grand and orchestral, the music shifts to a more upbeat jazz-infused number, like a knowing wink from the composer. A reminder that while the mystery may be solved, the story and these characters still have plenty of life left in them. It's the kind of music that makes you want to sit through the credits just to stay in the world a little longer. All throughout the film, the score acts like the perfect inner guest, never too loud, never trying to dominate the conversation, but always adding exactly the right mood, the right joke, the right pause. It enhances the charm, The tension, the heartache, and the joy, sometimes all in a single scene. It doesn't announce itself. It blends in so seamlessly you almost forget it's there, until a single note pulls at your heart, and you realize just how much it's been guiding you the whole time. Beneath the clever twists, charming characters, and cozy mystery of the Thursday Murder Club, there's a rich layer of themes that gives the film its emotional muscle. Sure, it's a murder mystery with tea and banter, but it's also quietly asking some big questions about life, purpose, aging, regret, justice, and the power of connection. The most obvious theme, and one that the film doesn't shy away from, is the idea that life doesn't lose meaning just because you've hit retirement. These characters might be in their 70s, but they're sharper, braver, and more emotionally awake than many half their age. The film flips the usual script on aging. Instead of portraying the elderly as background noise or comic relief, it puts them front and center as people who still want adventure, truth, and a reason to get up in the morning. And that's a powerful message, handled with wit and sincerity. The film also explores the idea of reinvention. These aren't people who have been detectives their whole lives. They're retired nurses, union leaders, psychiatrists, intelligence agents, and yet they take on something new. The story gently nudges the idea that it's never too late to try something different, to find new purpose, to start over, or to become someone braver than you were before. Whether it's Joyce learning to trust her instincts, Ibrahim confronting his trauma, or Ron reconnecting with his son, the theme of rediscovery is baked into every arc. There's also a strong undercurrent of friendship as salvation. Each of these characters has lived through some form of loss, partners, careers, health, identity, but it's their bond, their shared curiosity, and their support for one another that keeps them moving forward. The Thursday Murder Club isn't just about solving crimes. It's about belonging. It's about having people who see you, who listen to your stories, who believe you still matter. That emotional core is what makes the film linger in your mind long after the mystery's been solved. The film also has a lot to say about justice, not just the legal kind, but moral justice. There's a recurring question that pops up in different forms. What does justice look like when the truth is complicated? When the past can't be fixed? When doing the right thing might mean breaking a few rules? Through each character's perspective, the film dances around these ideas without ever getting preachy. Elizabeth's view of justice is tactical and sometimes ruthless. Joyce's is softer, more forgiving. Ibrahim weighs everything carefully, and Ron is all heart. Watching their differing views play out through the plot gives the film a nuanced, layered approach to right and wrong. Regret also plays a key role. Many of the characters are quietly haunted by things they didn't do, things they wish they'd said, or choices that changed their lives. The mystery becomes a kind of emotional excavation, not just of the murder itself, but of the lives left behind. As secrets are uncovered, they don't just reveal the killer, they reveal the characters to themselves. And in that sense, the film is as much about healing as it is about discovery. Even the setting plays into the themes. Cooper's Chase, the retirement village, is designed to feel safe and insulated, but the story quickly shows that nowhere is immune to darkness. The idyllic exterior masks all kinds of emotional, personal, and even criminal histories. That contrast between surface peace and buried truth becomes a recurring visual and thematic motif. It's a reminder that beneath even the quietest lives, there are stories waiting to be told. And, of course, there's the ever-present theme of curiosity. Not just about the murder, but about people, about life, about what happens when you stop accepting what you're told and start asking questions. The film encourages that sense of wonder and skepticism. It celebrates curiosity as a virtue, especially in people who are often told they've outlived their usefulness. These characters prove otherwise time and again, and that message hits in a way that's both heartwarming and invigorating. What's lovely is that none of these themes feel forced. They sneak up on you. One minute you're chuckling over a joke about biscuits, and the next you're feeling unexpectedly emotional about a character admitting they miss being needed. The film trusts its audience to pick up on the deeper layers without spelling everything out. It weaves its messages into the fabric of the story, letting them emerge naturally through action, dialogue, and choice. That's why they stick. Because they're not being preached, they're being lived, scene by scene, clue by clue. In the Thursday Murder Club, the visual effects aren't there to blow your mind. They're there to quietly fool it. This isn't the kind of film with fireballs and flying cars. There are no monsters lurking in the woods or superheroes leaping from rooftops. Instead, the visual effects are more like clever little magicians behind the curtain, pulling off tricks you don't even notice. And that's exactly what makes them so good. They blend in so seamlessly with the grounded, intimate world of Cooper's Chase that you rarely stop to ask, was that real? Because the answer doesn't matter. What matters is that it feels real. Take, for example, the environment itself. The retirement village may look like a quaint little haven on the surface, but visual effects subtly enhance this atmosphere without making it obvious. Digital touch-ups are used to smooth over weather inconsistencies, extend backgrounds, and maintain continuity across scenes shot at different times or locations. It's the kind of invisible work that keeps the setting looking effortlessly charming, even though behind the scenes, there may have been construction noise, bad lighting, or patchy skies. The VFX team's job here is not to dazzle, but to disappear. And they do it beautifully. There's also a clever use of CGI for background enhancements. Certain moments, like flashbacks to events in the past, use digital effects to age buildings, alter the scenery, or recreate a location as it once was. You might not realize that you're looking at a digitally redressed version of the same hallway you saw earlier in the film, but that's the point. These effects work in the service of memory, helping the audience shift through time without needing to call attention to the transition. It's cinematic time travel by way of a digital paintbrush. In contrast, the film makes excellent use of practical effects for anything involving physical interaction. Bloodstains, broken objects, torn clothing, all these elements are handled practically, adding texture and realism to the mystery. There's a key scene involving a staged accident, and everything from the scattered debris to the twisted railing looks and feels painfully authentic. It's these small, tactile details that ground the mystery. You're not watching effects, you're watching consequences. And that makes the stakes feel more immediate. When the film dips into darker or more suspenseful territory, like sneaking through a suspect's home at night or exploring an old, half-abandoned building, visual effects are used to enhance atmosphere rather than action. Subtle lighting tweaks, digitally deepened shadows, even a faint hint of fog or flickering light all work to add tension without screaming horror movie. It's a clever way to shift the emotional tone without changing the rules of the world. You're still in a cozy mystery, but now it's one with a pulse you can actually feel. There's also something to be said about the restrained use of digital enhancements in character-centric scenes. Occasionally, VFX is used to age a character slightly in a flashback or to smooth out transitions between locations that were filmed weeks apart. But again, it's all invisible. You don't notice these choices as effects. You absorb them as part of the story's fluidity. The most entertaining use of visual effects may come from the comedic set pieces. There's a particular montage where the group attempts to surveil a suspect, complete with makeshift disguises and a very unconvincing attempt at tailing someone through a farmer's market. The background crowds, reactions, and even some of the weather are enhanced digitally to keep the mood light and the visuals consistent. It's playful VFX, used to punch up the humor without overstepping into parody. And that's the real triumph here: restraint. The visual effects are like a good butler, always there when needed, but never getting in the way. They serve the story, not the spectacle. They make the world richer, the mystery tighter, and the scenes smoother, all without drawing attention to themselves. This is a masterclass in subtle craftsmanship, where the effects team understands that the best compliment they can get is for the audience to not even notice their work. Because in a world built on curiosity, detail, and character, the best illusion is the one that makes you forget you're watching a movie at all. The set design and locations in the Thursday Murder Club are a masterclass in quiet storytelling. They don't just house the characters, they tell on them. Every room, every garden, every slightly crooked teacup on a shelf helps build the world of Cooper's Chase and its residents in a way that feels both warmly familiar and layered with secrets. This film isn't about sweeping fantasy landscapes or high-gloss futuristic cities. It's about real spaces, lived-in places, And yet, those ordinary environments are presented with such attention to emotional detail that they become part of the narrative themselves. The retirement village of Cooper's Chase is the story's central hub, and what a brilliantly chosen setting it is. From the moment you see it, with its manicured lawns, winding walking paths, neatly trimmed hedges, and communal lounge areas that smell like lavender and decades of stories, you know this isn't just a backdrop. It's a character. The design leans into the paradox of the place. It's peaceful, orderly, and well-decorated on the surface, but underneath, it hides histories, tension, and more than a few buried truths. The architecture has a deliberately uniform feel, hinting at control and predictability, which is exactly why it's so satisfying when the mystery begins to unravel right in its center. Inside the residents' homes, the props do some of the best character work in the film. Joyce's apartment is full of soft fabrics, cheerful patterns, well-kept houseplants, and framed photographs that scream mother and friend. Her bookshelf tells you what she reads. Her kitchen tells you how often she bakes. Meanwhile, Elizabeth's flat is sharp, minimalist, and oddly impersonal, until you notice a shelf with spy novels that feel a little too specific to be coincidence. Ibrahim's home is immaculate, bordering on obsessive. It tells you everything about his need for control. Ron's space is full of football memorabilia, old posters from union rallies, and mismatched mugs, proof that this is someone who's lived a loud life and never stopped caring about causes. Even the community center, where the club meets, is a visual treasure trove. The bulletin boards filled with notices about lost cats, bridge nights, and water aerobics serve not only as environmental dressing, but as subtle reminders that this is a world of routine until the club breaks it. The conference room where they meet becomes a kind of secret lair, with stacks of notes, old case files, and a whiteboard scrawled with possible motives. It's cozy, and it's absurdly wholesome, and it's where the film's most devious conversations take place. Then there are the locations outside Cooper's Chase, places that widen the scope of the mystery without losing the tone. A rundown pub with sticky floors and suspiciously silent regulars becomes a key place for secrets to spill. The local cemetery is shot with soft lighting and wide frames, giving it a quiet beauty that contrasts its role as a hiding spot for dark truths. An old farmhouse becomes a chilling set piece, with its creaky stairs, dusty attic, and a sense that someone's been watching the windows. Each location adds texture and mood, not just because of how they look, but because of what they suggest. There's always a feeling that something might be hiding just out of frame. The production design also plays with visual irony. You'll often see the most dramatic, even sinister developments happening in spaces that are brightly lit, full of doilies and floral upholstery. That contrast becomes a kind of visual joke, but also a reminder that darkness doesn't always show up wearing a cape. Sometimes it's sipping tea and asking how your garden's doing. The props support this tone perfectly. A seemingly harmless knitting basket? It might be hiding evidence. A framed photo of a resident's late husband? It might be a clue. Everything in the frame has potential. Nothing is random. Even weather plays a role in the set design. On sunny days, the story leans into the false sense of security that Cooper's Chase offers. When things turn rainy or overcast, the same gardens and hallways suddenly feel tense, haunted by implication. The lighting design helps make these transitions feel natural. Warm amber tones in daytime shift to cooler, dimmer palettes during moments of suspense or emotional reckoning. What's most impressive is how cohesive it all feels. The film never tries too hard to make the sets mean something, but they do anyway because the design is so smart, so intuitive. You feel like you've walked into a real place where real people live real lives and just happen to be investigating murder in their spare time. And in a film like this, where character is everything, that kind of design work isn't just impressive, it's essential. The dialogue in the Thursday Murder Club doesn't just speak. It sings, gossips, jabs, reminisces, and occasionally threatens, all in the same breath. From the very first scene, the script grabs you not with grand declarations or over-polished monologues, but with the kind of lines that feel like they've lived a full life before arriving on screen. This isn't dialogue for show. It's dialogue that knows its characters inside out and lets them speak exactly as they would, quirks and all. And that's where the magic begins. Each character has a voice so distinct, you could close your eyes and know exactly who's talking. Joyce has this delightful way of turning every observation into a meandering story that somehow circles back to the point, if she remembers it. Her lines are filled with warmth, nosiness, and a kind of low-stakes mischief. It's not just what she says, it's how she says it. One moment she's talking about her cat, the next she's offering an alibi with a smile and a biscuit. Her dialogue is laced with gentle chaos, the kind that keeps you on your toes and laughing under your breath. Elizabeth's lines are like finely tuned darts, always calm, precise, and with the faintest trace of menace when needed. She never wastes words. She doesn't need to. Every sentence she delivers feels like a chess move, even when she's talking about something as innocent as knitting. But when things turn serious, she has a way of cutting straight to the emotional core without raising her voice. Her dialogue works like a spotlight. It illuminates and intimidates in equal measure. Ron's voice comes out swinging. He talks like a man who's spent his whole life in the middle of an argument and doesn't see any reason to stop now. His lines are peppered with sarcasm, defiance, and the kind of unfiltered honesty that turns even the smallest insult into an oddly endearing punchline. There's something beautifully blunt about the way he speaks. Whether he's accusing someone of murder or complaining about the dinner menu, he means it. Then you have Ibrahim, whose dialogue is surgical in its detail. He's the kind of character who speaks with precision, and the script gives him lines that reflect his analytical mind. He's not verbose, but he's thoughtful, and his observations often land harder because of how softly they're spoken. He'll say something that sounds completely rational, and yet somehow deeply unsettling. The contrast between his clinical tone and the absurdity of the club's antics adds a dry humor that never gets old. What makes the script shine is its balance. One moment you're laughing at a perfectly timed jab, and the next you're hit with a line that suddenly makes everything feel real and vulnerable. There's a scene where two characters sit in silence for a beat before one of them says something heartbreakingly honest about getting older. Not melodramatic, not sentimental, just true, and it lands like a punch because the script has earned that moment. It's spent time making you care, and it knows exactly when to pull back the curtain. There are standout lines that become part of the film's DNA. Some are wickedly clever, some are oddly profound, and a few will probably be quoted by fans for years to come. A dry aside about the benefits of keeping a shovel in your car. A heartfelt reflection on losing someone but still waking up the next day. A bit of mock flirting that turns into a genuinely touching moment. The film doesn't shout these lines. It lets you discover them. The humor is one of the script's strongest muscles. It's never forced or formulaic. It grows organically from who these characters are and how they see the world. The banter isn't there just for laughs. It builds relationships, reveals insecurities, and, more than once, distracts from the fact that someone just cleverly dodged a question about their whereabouts the night of the murder. Even the supporting characters are gifted with dialogue that feels alive. There's a local police officer who starts off sounding completely overwhelmed, but eventually develops a quiet rhythm of confidence. A mysterious new resident with a talent for saying just enough to keep suspicion alive. Everyone has something to say, and the script gives them the room to say it in a way that adds flavor and dimension. In the end, the script doesn't just drive the story. It creates the story's texture. It lets you feel the wisdom of experience, the weight of secrets, the absurdity of everyday life, and the joy of sharing it all with someone who gets it. The dialogue doesn't need explosions or dramatic monologues. It just needs a well-timed pause, a raised eyebrow, and a perfectly ordinary sentence delivered with just enough of a twist to make you lean in. The Thursday Murder Club walks into the murder mystery genre with a teacup in one hand and a shovel in the other, charming its way past every cliché just long enough to flip them upside down when you're least expecting it. On the surface, it gives you what you'd expect from a whodunit. A dead body, a list of suspects, red herrings scattered like breadcrumbs, and a group of unlikely sleuths poking around in places they probably shouldn't be. But the twist? The sleuths are retirees. The setting is a retirement village. And the tone dances effortlessly between cozy and cunning. This film doesn't shy away from the tropes. It just chooses to play with them. You've got your classic murder mystery beats, a suspicious will, shady motives, hidden relationships, and secret pasts. But instead of a hard-boiled detective in a trench coat or a neurotic genius with a magnifying glass, you get Elizabeth, Joyce, Ron, and Ibrahim, four pensioners with sharp minds, hidden histories, and absolutely no intention of aging quietly. They attend Pilates in the morning and question suspects by lunch. They bake casseroles and crack alibis, all while being underestimated by pretty much everyone they meet. And that's exactly the point. The film takes the genre's assumptions about who solves crimes, how investigations should work, and what a mystery should look like, and has a bit of cheeky fun with them. The suspense is cleverly paced. It's not high-octane, jump-out-of-your-seat tension. It's slower, subtler, but no less satisfying. Clues are revealed with a wink and a raised eyebrow, not a dramatic music sting. The film knows its audience isn't here for car chases. They're here for layers, for connections, for that one offhand comment that turns out to be everything. The real thrill comes from watching how the club unravels threads others didn't even notice were loose. But don't let the cozy atmosphere fool you. There are real stakes. When the drama hits, it lands. The film dips into surprisingly weighty territory without ever losing its tone. Moments of grief, guilt, regret, and loneliness sneak up on you between jokes about bingo night and awkward attempts at flirting. It's all part of the emotional cocktail the genre rarely gets right, making you care about the mystery, yes, but also about the people solving it. When the truth starts to unravel, you're not just trying to guess who did it, you're hoping your favorite characters come out the other side okay. The humor is where the film really outplays the genre. It's not slapstick or overdone. It's character-driven, deeply British, and wonderfully dry. A lot of it comes from the contrast between the seriousness of murder and the mundanity of retirement village life. Imagine plotting a stakeout, but being late because of a Tai Chi class. Or whispering about potential suspects while someone else is loudly discussing their bunions in the background. These little comedic beats are scattered throughout the film, and they never feel forced. They feel earned, lived in, part of the rhythm of this world. What's fresh is how the film lets age be a superpower. So many mysteries lean on youth and recklessness, but the Thursday Murder Club leans into experience, emotional intelligence, and the quiet kind of wisdom that only comes from decades of living. These aren't characters who just happened into the mystery. They're choosing to solve it, using their skills, their networks, their intuition. And because no one takes them seriously, they get away with more than they probably should. Even the structure plays with genre expectations. There are false leads that feel convincing, reveals that change what you thought you knew, and emotional payoffs that hit harder than expected. It doesn't reinvent the wheel, but it definitely spins it in a new direction. The mystery unfolds in layers rather than big reveals. It rewards patience. It asks you to pay attention to the little things, like the way someone answers a question, or what they don't say when they walk into a room. There's also a healthy respect for the audience's intelligence. The film doesn't spoon-feed you answers or over-explain plot twists. It trusts you to pick up on subtext, to remember that one odd comment from earlier, to piece things together just like the club does. That's rare in a genre that sometimes veers into either too obvious or too convoluted. Ultimately, the Thursday Murder Club doesn't try to be louder, darker, or more shocking than other mysteries. It just aims to be smarter, warmer, and more human. And in doing that, it creates a genre experience that feels both comfortingly familiar and delightfully unexpected, where murder is on the menu, but so is tea, banter, and the unmistakable power of people who've seen it all and still have a few tricks left up their sleeves. The Thursday Murder Club doesn't come at you with a bullhorn full of social commentary. It doesn't need to. Instead, it sneaks thoughtful reflections into its mystery like hidden clues in a crossword puzzle. It wraps sharp observations about aging, class, justice, and community in witty dialogue and cozy murder capers, and the result is a film that says a lot without ever sounding like it's preaching. The magic is in how naturally the themes unfold, as if they're just part of the landscape, like the garden gnomes and walking frames, but they're doing some serious heavy lifting under the surface. Let's start with aging because it's right there at the heart of everything. Most stories sideline older characters or turn them into comic relief, but here, the retirees are the stars. They're not treated as relics or stereotypes. They're clever, flawed, messy, funny, secretive, and strong. The film gently but firmly challenges society's tendency to write off the elderly. It shows how much experience, history, and value people carry with them, even when their joints creak. And it does so by putting these characters in the driver's seat of the story. They're not just in the plot. They're solving it, shaping it, and making you care. There's a wonderfully cheeky undercurrent of rebellion in that. These characters know they're underestimated. They use it. They exploit people's assumptions. And the film makes you question how often we do the same in real life. How often we overlook someone because of their age. How much we miss when we assume someone's best years are behind them. Without hammering the point, the story makes you think about aging as something active and powerful, not just a slow fade into invisibility. Class and privilege also get some sly attention. The setting, a posh retirement village in the British countryside, offers a very specific kind of microcosm. There are characters who come from wealth and those who've worked hard their whole lives to get where they are. You feel the quiet tensions between the haves and the have-less but still manage to sneak into the country club. The mystery winds its way through developers, caretakers, former criminals, and small-town politicians. You start to see how power operates differently at every level and how justice sometimes means different things to different people. But the film doesn't flatten anyone into a symbol. It's never as simple as rich bad, poor good. Everyone's got secrets. Everyone's got regrets. Everyone's capable of surprising you. What the story does so well is show how personal histories and the class systems people grew up in leave fingerprints on their choices, their fears, and the lies they're willing to tell to protect what they've built. There's also a beautifully subtle commentary on loneliness and connection. These characters are at a stage in life where loss is common. Friends have passed. Families have drifted. Time is precious, and so is company. The film doesn't drown in sentimentality, but it does shine a warm light on what it means to find companionship when you least expect it. The Thursday Murder Club itself is as much about solving crimes as it is about solving the mystery of how to keep living meaningfully when the world feels like it's moved on without you. And let's not forget the police. The relationship between the club and the local authorities is laced with commentary. There's a generational clash, young officers trying to be by the book, while the club bends every rule with charm and impunity. But beneath the comedy, there's a real exploration of how institutions can miss things individuals don't. How systems are designed for efficiency, but not always for empathy. The film subtly questions what justice really looks like, and whether the truth always belongs in a courtroom. It also doesn't shy away from more sensitive ground. Grief, addiction, abuse of power, betrayal. These things are present, layered in with the same care as the lighter moments. The story allows its characters to carry real emotional weight without turning the tone maudlin or melodramatic. A conversation over a cup of tea might casually crack open a window into someone's deepest wound. And then, just as quickly, someone cracks a joke and it's on to the next scene. But the ache lingers. That's smart storytelling. So yes, there's a murder to solve. Yes, there are plot twists and witty banter and biscuit-fueled interrogations. But beneath all that, the Thursday Murder Club is quietly having a conversation with you about how we see each other, how we value people at different stages of life, and how community, kindness, and a little bit of mischief can still make a dent in the world. It's social commentary served with sponge cake and sarcasm, and somehow that makes it all the more powerful. The Thursday Murder Club knows exactly how to play with your heartstrings without turning the entire experience into an emotional ambush. It doesn't try to overwhelm you with melodrama or cheap sentiment. It earns every laugh, every tear, and every moment of wait. Did that just happen? It's the kind of film that knows its audience is smart, observant, and emotionally tuned in, and it rewards that with moments that truly connect. You don't just watch this film. You feel like you're part of the club. You lean in closer during the quiet moments, you chuckle at the dry wit, and somewhere along the way, you realize you actually care.
Deeply.
Right from the start, the film establishes this strange but irresistible tone. One minute you're chuckling at a delightfully petty complaint about lukewarm tea or an ex-husband's tragic choice in wallpaper, and the next, you're hit with a line about loss or loneliness that completely guts you. It's not jarring, it's real. That's how life feels, especially in the later years the characters are navigating. The film captures that emotional rhythm, the humor that follows heartbreak, the joy found in solving a mystery, the comfort of friendship when grief is still fresh. Audiences don't just laugh, they laugh with the characters. The humor is intimate. You start to recognize the quirks and rhythms of each member of the club, and that familiarity only deepens your attachment. Joyce's enthusiastic observations, Elizabeth's calm steeliness, Ron's blunt honesty, Ibrahim's analytical awkwardness, they're not just characters solving a murder, they're people you want to sit next to at dinner. So when they face danger or disappointment or even just a particularly painful memory, it matters.
You feel it.
And when something bad happens, because yes, there are shocks, you don't just react to the plot twist. You react because it affects them. There are moments that invite real reflection. Not in a heavy-handed way, but in the kind of subtle way that creeps up on you after the credits roll. You start thinking about your own friendships, about the people in your life you might underestimate, about what it means to stay curious and active and involved even when society says it's time to slow down. The film doesn't demand introspection, but it invites it. Gently, cleverly, with a raised eyebrow and a half-smile. And then there's the suspense. It's not heart-pounding in the thriller sense, but it's emotionally gripping. You're pulled along not just because you want to know who did it, but because the stakes feel personal. The twists feel earned, and when they land, they provoke audible gasps, raised eyebrows, even the occasional rewind to double-check if you missed the clue earlier. This is one of those films where viewers genuinely want to talk afterward. About theories, about character motivations, about that one scene where someone said something that seemed minor, but was actually everything. And yes, there are tears. Not the big dramatic sobs, but the kind that sneak up on you during a scene that suddenly hits too close to home. A character recalling a lost love. Someone quietly acknowledging a life regret. A moment of kindness that's so unexpected and sincere, it leaves a lump in your throat. And just when the mood dips too low, a line of hilariously timed dialogue or an offbeat character interaction yanks you back into balance. That emotional elasticity keeps you invested from beginning to end. Repeat viewings? Absolutely. The kind of detail tucked into the performances, the dialogue, and even the background moments begs for another watch. You start to catch the subtle glances, the quiet foreshadowing, the tiny breadcrumbs that make the mystery even more satisfying the second or third time around. And the emotional beats? They hit even harder once you know what's coming. It's the kind of film that becomes more rewarding the more time you spend with it. Most of all, the Thursday Murder Club makes you feel welcome. Like you've joined a community. Like you've been invited into a cozy, clever, slightly chaotic circle of people who might not be perfect, but who are trying. Who are brave in ways that don't involve weapons or stunts, but kindness and persistence and curiosity. And when a film can make you feel that deeply, while still keeping you laughing, guessing, and completely hooked, it's not just engaging. It's unforgettable. When you line up the Thursday Murder Club next to other entries in the mystery genre, it doesn't just hold its own. It winks, raises an eyebrow, and casually steals the show with a cup of tea in one hand and a magnifying glass in the other. This isn't just another detective story with rain-soaked alleys and brooding private eyes. No, this one trades trench coats for cardigans, dark alleys for countryside gardens, and high-speed chases for slightly suspicious bake sales. It belongs to that charming, curious corner of the genre occupied by stories that are more interested in people than procedure, in personality over plot gimmicks, but still smart enough to tie the whole thing together with a clever twist. Let's talk comparisons. If you love Knives Out for its eccentric characters and puzzle box storytelling, this film taps into that same energy, but with a lot more knitting circles and bingo night drama. Where Knives Out feels like a modern, cheeky reinvention of the classic Whodunit, The Thursday Murder Club is its warmer, more introspective cousin. It trades the flamboyant detective for four unlikely retirees who look like they should be collecting garden gnomes, but end up uncovering criminal webs with more skill than the professionals. And the best part? It doesn't feel like it's trying to copy anyone. It has its own confident voice, its own rhythm, and it's very content being exactly what it is, a mystery with heart, bite, and charm. Then there's the Agatha Christie universe, which is clearly part of this film's DNA. Think Miss Marple, but instead of one elderly sleuth, you've got a quartet, each bringing their own flavor. You've got a former spy who sees everything, a gentle psychiatrist who reads people better than books, a fiery activist who cuts through lies with a growl, and a sweet pensioner who surprises everyone with how sharp she actually is. The format leans into Christie's method of planting clues in plain sight, building tension through small-town secrets, and creating that delicious sense of paranoia where anyone could be hiding something. But it also modernizes it. The humor is snappier, the dialogue less mannered, and the emotional undercurrents far richer. If you're coming from the world of British crime dramas, say, Broadchurch or Vera, you might expect moodiness and grit. But the Thursday Murder Club flips that expectation on its head. Sure, there's murder. Sure, there are secrets and lies. But the tone stays light without losing stakes. It doesn't wallow in trauma. It observes it, respects it, and moves through it with warmth and wit. It proves that crime stories don't need to be drenched in misery to have emotional weight or narrative punch. It's more Doc Martin meets Midsummer Murders, with the heart turned all the way up. And what about the director's own filmography? If this film is a debut, it lands with the confidence of someone who's been studying character-driven storytelling for years. If the director has dabbled in drama or comedy before, you can see the fingerprints here, particularly in the way the story balances tone. The transitions from humor to heartbreak are seamless. The scenes feel lived in. The pace is deliberate but never slow, giving the characters room to breathe without ever losing sight of the central mystery. Compared to formulaic genre entries where a quirky detective solves a murder in 90 predictable minutes, the Thursday Murder Club is a breath of fresh air. It respects the intelligence of the audience. It doesn't handhold or over-explain. It lets you sit in a scene, listen to the banter, absorb the subtext, and maybe, just maybe, figure things out before the reveal. But even if you don't, the journey is the reward. The conversations, the character arcs, the unexpected moments of vulnerability, those are what make this film stand out in a sea of imitators. It also does something rare for the genre. It actually says something. While many mysteries are content to twist and turn for the sake of suspense, this one uses its story to explore themes of aging, relevance, justice, and the messiness of life. It delivers entertainment and insight, often in the same scene, often in the same sentence. That's not something every mystery attempts, let alone nails. So whether you're a fan of detective yarns, ensemble comedies, or character studies wrapped in murder plots, this one threads the needle between all three with style and soul. It's familiar in all the ways that make you lean back with a smile, and fresh in the ways that keep you leaning forward, hanging on every word. It's a new classic, not because it shouts the loudest, but because it listens the closest. Symbolism in the Thursday Murder Club isn't flashy or abstract. It sneaks in like a quiet clue, disguised as something mundane, something ordinary, and then, before you know it, it's tugging at a thread far deeper than the surface mystery. This film is packed with metaphors hiding in plain sight. The setting itself is the first big symbol, a quiet retirement village filled with tidy lawns and scheduled yoga, a place that screams, end of the road. But this calm, almost too perfect exterior is a mask. Just beneath the surface simmers loss, regret, longing, and unfinished business. That's exactly what the film's mystery reflects, a murder buried under decades of silence, just like some of the emotional truths each character is hiding. Take the club itself. A group of retirees gathering to solve cold cases might seem like a quirky hobby, but the club is a symbol of relevance. These are people who the world has largely dismissed, shuffled into leisure living, and forgotten. But the club is their rebellion against invisibility. Every clue they crack, Every suspect they outwit is a metaphor for reclaiming agency. It's not just about solving the crime, it's about proving they still matter. The Thursday Murder Club is less about murder and more about life, and their investigations become a reflection of their desire to stay engaged with it. Recurring objects pop up as quiet symbols. There's the worn notebook Joyce keeps in her bag, filled with observations, gossip, and seemingly random thoughts. But that notebook becomes a stand-in for voice and memory, a place where someone overlooked by everyone else is writing down everything, proving that she sees more than people realize. Elizabeth's teacup, always in hand no matter the chaos around her, becomes a subtle badge of control. No matter what emotional storm is brewing, that cup remains steady, just like her. And Ron's old Union badge, mentioned once and then seen quietly pinned to a wall, is more than a keepsake. It's a symbol of who he used to be, and a quiet reminder that everyone in this film has a past that still shapes them. Even the weather joins in the symbolic conversation. Sunshine during moments of deceit. Gentle rain when someone finally opens up. A thick morning fog that hangs over the village when the mystery hits its most confusing point. It's all intentional. It helps guide the emotional tone of the story without ever shouting for attention. Nature here is a mirror, subtly echoing the characters' inner states. When the fog lifts, so does a secret. When a breeze rustles the hedges, something is about to be disturbed. The metaphors stretch into the very structure of the mystery itself. The idea of a cold case is layered with meaning because so many of the people in this story are, in some sense, cold cases themselves. Stories unfinished. Relationships unresolved. Pasts that refuse to stay buried. The solving of the murder is as much about confronting the past as it is about uncovering facts. Every step forward in the investigation is a metaphorical confrontation with grief, with aging, with choices that once seemed right but now sit heavier with time. There's also brilliant use of silence. In a film filled with delightful chatter and sharp wit, it's the quiet moments that land like a punch. A shared glance between characters when a painful memory is stirred. A pause before someone answers a seemingly simple question. A sudden stillness after a joke falls flat. These silences become metaphors for everything unsaid, the emotions too big to be spoken, the regrets too deep to be voiced aloud. It's through these gaps in conversation that some of the film's most powerful emotional notes are played. The central murder mystery itself operates on a symbolic level. It's not just about justice. It's about truth, about memory, about how the past never really dies, no matter how far back you try to bury it. As the characters peel back layers of secrets, the film is inviting the audience to do the same, not just with the mystery, but with themselves. What have we forgotten? What do we choose to ignore? What truths might we still be carrying, hidden just beneath our carefully composed surface? And in all of this, the garden paths, the old photographs, the village bulletin board filled with birthday announcements and lost cat flyers, there's a larger metaphor at play. That life, even near its supposed end, is still full of complexity, of stories yet to be told, of mysteries worth solving. The Thursday Murder Club wraps all this symbolism and metaphor in a deceptively simple package. It lets you enjoy the mystery on one level while quietly, cleverly layering in emotional depth and thematic richness. It's not just about who did it. It's about why it matters that someone cares enough to find out. The Thursday Murder Club may be the first big-screen chapter of what could very well grow into a delightful and distinctly British cinematic franchise, but it already feels like it belongs to a much larger story because, well, it does. Based on the best-selling novel by Richard Osman, this film isn't just a one-off murder mystery. It's the foundation stone of a rich series that's already beloved by readers around the world. And the film wastes no time letting you know that this is just the beginning. From its character introductions to its subtle world-building, it sets up a cozy little universe brimming with recurring potential, layered backstories, and enough hints of future cases to keep any amateur sleuth happily guessing long after the credits roll. What makes this film stand out in terms of franchise potential is that it doesn't go for loud spectacle or bombastic cliffhangers. Instead, it builds its world with care. You get the sense that every side character has their own file tucked away, every passing comment could blossom into a future subplot, and every member of the Thursday Murder Club has more than a few secrets still tucked into their cardigans. It's not just about this mystery. It's about how this group works together, how their dynamic shifts with every new challenge, and how the quiet village of Cooper's Chase isn't quite as sleepy as it looks. It's that rare kind of storytelling where the backdrop itself becomes a character, and you just know we'll be returning to it. Now, the film doesn't just lift from the book series, it expands on it in smart, cinematic ways. It understands that a franchise is only as strong as its core ensemble, and this one is bursting with charm. You can see the groundwork being laid for long-term development. Elizabeth's mysterious past isn't just a fun quirk, it's clearly going to unravel piece by piece, potentially tying into future cases. Joyce's narration adds a diary-like quality to the story, hinting that we might get different perspectives or timelines as the series progresses. Ron's firebrand approach to justice contrasts beautifully with Ibrahim's meticulous logic, and that tension is ripe for long-term exploration. It's like the perfect sitcom setup, but with more dead bodies and alibis. And while the film exists very much in the present, it also plays with a quiet sense of historical context, particularly in the way the characters' pasts influence the mystery. Many of the central players come from earlier eras filled with secrets, espionage, lost loves, or past mistakes. The murder they're investigating didn't happen in a vacuum. It's rooted in long-ago decisions, hidden files, and relationships that have aged like fine wine or gone sour like spoiled milk. In that way, even though it's not a historical film in the traditional sense, it feels like a story that spans decades. The mystery of the present is always brushing up against the unresolved echoes of the past, and that layering gives the film depth. If the studio continues adapting Osman's novels, which seems likely, this film has set a high standard for how to kick off a murder mystery franchise. Unlike many franchises that grow bloated or lose focus after one hit, the Thursday Murder Club is designed to evolve with its characters. As they age, change, grow closer or drift apart, the stakes shift. This isn't a franchise powered by plot alone, it's powered by people. It's about watching four incredibly distinct individuals navigate both life and crime together, case after case. And let's not forget the wider cultural niche it fills. In a media landscape filled with superheroes, spies, and gritty reboots, this film carves out a gentle yet sharp corner where the stakes are personal, the crimes are clever, and the detectives are more likely to wield teacups than weapons. It stands alongside the likes of Paddington, The Best Exotic Marigold Hotel, and Downton Abbey as part of a distinctly British tradition of ensemble-driven, intergenerational storytelling. If those films can blossom into beloved franchises, there's no reason the Thursday Murder Club won't follow suit. So whether you're coming in fresh or already familiar with the novels, the film makes it clear. This is just the first chapter. It plants seeds for future mysteries, hints at deeper emotional arcs, and introduces a cast you're going to want to follow, not just because they solve crimes, but because they remind you that life doesn't stop being surprising, ridiculous, or meaningful just because you've reached retirement. If anything, that's when the real fun begins. The production budget for the Thursday Murder Club was reportedly around $120 million, which is quite a bold number for a cozy murder mystery set mostly in a retirement village. But you can absolutely see where that money went. From the picturesque English countryside to the detailed set design of Cooper's Chase, and of course, the cast, which includes big names like Helen Mirren, Brosnan, and Ben Kingsley, it's clear that the production didn't cut any corners. Everything looks polished, refined, and purposefully cinematic. It's the kind of film where even a scene in a quiet tea room is beautifully lit and carefully framed. It may be a story about pensioners solving murders, but visually and technically, it plays like a prestige drama. Now here's where it gets interesting. Despite that blockbuster-level budget, the movie didn't go the traditional box office route. It had a very limited theatrical release, shown in only a small number of cinemas in the UK. That's right, just around 30 screens. So, In terms of raw box office numbers, there's no chance it could compete with major tentpoles or even other Netflix-backed features that opened on hundreds of screens. While some hoped this would be a wider theatrical run due to the strong fan base of the books and the star-studded lineup, Netflix had a different strategy. This was never about box office domination. It was about creating buzz and anticipation for its streaming release. Marketing-wise, Netflix played it smart. They didn't go overboard with massive campaigns. Instead, they relied on the already loyal fan base of the book series, the appeal of the cast, and the natural curiosity the story brings. A group of retirees solving cold cases? That's not just intriguing. It's also a breath of fresh air in a market flooded with loud, high-concept action blockbusters. And with the film being marketed as the start of a potential franchise, audiences knew going in that this wasn't a one-and-done kind of story. As for financial success, that's a little harder to pin down with a streaming release. But from a production quality standpoint, it absolutely lives up to its budget. You can see the polish, the care, the talent. Whether it earns back that money through direct subscriptions, long-term engagement, or merchandise and sequel potential, Netflix clearly sees value in it. And when viewers sit down to watch it at home, they're likely going to feel like they're getting a full cinematic experience without leaving the couch. So while the Thursday Murder Club may not be a box office giant in the traditional sense, it was never trying to be. It plays by a different rulebook, one that values long-term franchise building and audience loyalty over opening weekend figures. The budget matched the ambition, and the film delivered something that looks and feels far grander than its modest theatrical rollout would suggest. Here's where you can watch the Thursday Murder Club and enjoy its delightful mix of mystery, humor, and heart. The film had a very limited theatrical release in the UK beginning August 22, 2025, showing in just a small number of cinemas. This was more of a special rollout than a wide theatrical experience, mainly designed to build anticipation for its global streaming debut. The real premiere happened on August 28, 2025, when the film officially became available for streaming worldwide on Netflix. So, unless you were one of the few lucky ones who caught it in a cinema, Netflix is your best bet, and really, it's the platform where this film feels most at home. This is one of those movies that suits a cozy evening setup perfectly. Whether you're watching it on a big smart TV, your laptop, or even curled up with your tablet, the film style and tone lend themselves beautifully to home viewing. It doesn't demand massive speakers or a giant screen, but it does reward quiet attention, especially if you're the type to savor dialogue, catch subtle clues, and enjoy the chemistry between seasoned actors. As of now, there's no confirmed digital rental or DVD release, which means Netflix remains the exclusive home for the film. That means if you're planning a weekend movie night or a midweek mystery fix, all you need is a Netflix subscription and maybe a warm cup of tea to complete the experience. So grab your favorite snacks, dim the lights, and settle in. With its layered storytelling, clever twists, and charming ensemble cast, The Thursday Murder Club is one of those films that feels tailor-made for a thoughtful evening indoors. Streaming brings it right to your doorstep, and you won't even have to solve a murder to find it.